Welcome back to Deep in State. I'm your host, Nick Hawks. This is sponsored by Gold Hawks. On today's show, we've got Caitlin Cook, who's head of growth over at Moonwalk. This episode is sponsored by Gold Hawks and Associates, the most experienced DePIN consultancy in the space. We help projects develop strategy, messaging, and token incentives. We'll have a little bit more on us later in the show. Before we get started, make sure you hit the like, subscribe, smash the button, all the things that help us keep bringing great guests like Caitlin to you. Caitlin, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I'm psyched to have you on. Let's see. So we're going to talk about Moonwalk. I think it's probably pretty easy to go through like some quick stuff. It started early 2024. I think you came on board in June and you were a power user before you came in. But tell us a little bit about what Moonwalk does and what the intent is.
Yeah, sure. So Moonwalk is a fitness accountability app built on Solana that uses financial and social incentives to help users form lasting healthy habits. A lot of the time people set out to make these big fitness and health goals that end up being unsustainable or not fully integrated into their life.
Yeah.
We try to take a more simple approach, which I think is much more realistic, and we like to make it fun. Obviously, something that blockchain and Solana support really well is financial incentives. So the way that Moonwalk contests work right now, can talk about where it'll go later, are step-based contests. Steps could be walking, running, dancing, just moving more throughout the day.
Yep.
There's a daily step goal in each Moonwalk contest. It lasts a certain number of days, and there's an entry deposit to join. That deposit is denominated in USDC, Solana, or Bonk as of now. And basically the way that the game works is that you put money up to join, and if you hit your daily step goal consistently throughout the contest, you get all of your money back at the end of the game with the chance to split a prize pool. That prize pool is made up of partial deposits from other players in the game who do not hit their step goals consistently. So I like to call it gamified accountability, just a really good way to put your money where your health is. I kind of like to say as well,
Yep.
to make sure you're actually doing what you say you're going to do. Because accountability is really one of the biggest factors in actually forming and sticking to a habit.
Got it. So if I'm thinking of this between, say, me and my partner Max, as we each put up whatever, $100, and we say like, hey, I bet for 30 days straight, I can do 10,000 steps a day. If Max does that because he does 1 million steps a day and I don't because I get distracted, at the end of that, he gets a part of the $100 or whatever it was that I put up. Is that generally correct?
Yep, correct. So
Okay.
however many days you miss out of 30, that portion of the overall deposit goes to the prize pool for him.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm not going to compete against Max. He was telling me that he almost lost 18 cents for not hitting his 12,000 step a day goal. So not going up against him. But let's see, can you talk me through, there's, I guess, public and private games. So there's like, it must be big ones and then smaller ones. How does that shake out? How does it work?
Yeah, so we want the platform to be accessible for anyone, regardless of how they're coming to it. So say I'm coming to Moonwalk independently on my own. There are a ton of public games, upcoming games at any given time that I can join, with a variety of step goals, game lengths, entry deposit amounts. So really something for everyone. You could put $1 on the line and maybe that's a lot for you. Or we've had Solana whales that have done games with 100 soul deposit per person on a 30,000 step a day game. Those are private, but you can make those happen. So private games are where I think things will get interesting as the product grows, where you're able to create custom contests for your community or your friend group or your family, where it's enclosed to people that you know, rather than these massive public games, which serve a different purpose as well, where we've had hundreds of players in each game pretty consistently. So you might not know who you're playing against, but maybe you're coming to the platform alone, you want to get started. That's a really good option. But private games, I think, will be the future where you can kind of customize the experience for like your crew.
Oh, that's interesting. I would have thought it'd be the other way around, that people would want to get into public games because you have more people who are potentially not making their step goal so you can earn more. But I guess
We'll find out. We'll see what the people like.
Yep. So let's see, your head of growth, I think in October, you guys had 2,000 users and 300 to 400 daily active. What's it look like at the end of January 2025?
Oh man, we're at over 110,000 signups now. And I mean, daily active on our Ascent leaderboard, which is probably the best way to track that, which is people who have joined multiple games and have come back, is probably getting close to 10,000 now. I need to check that, but it's rising very quickly.
So you're doing a good job.
Yeah, I mean, the product makes it simple for sure. So and a lot of that came after the launch of our iOS app. Version 1 of that went live on January 10th. And our Android app was just approved literally today, right before we spoke. So that'll be announced soon too. That's going to be the big one. And the numbers that we just talked about will be tiny in comparison. Android's 70% of the world. So as we have that open up and then we start adding more features to the game, make it more mainstream friendly with a lot of new features, I'm excited to see where it goes, but hopefully up only.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk about the features. So it's just steps right now. What other kind of fitness concepts do you guys have planned?
Oh man. So we've gotten a lot of community feedback. So we're still playing around with like what will be next, right? Because a lot of the focus now is refining the product that we have and making sure that it works super smoothly before we start adding different gamified contests, different data that you can track in there as well. But the end goal is that you should be able to come to Moonwalk and see all of the important health data that you want to access. No one wants to jump from app to app to be able to see bits and pieces of their data. So we want to have it in one spot eventually. And then we've also had a lot of community members giving feedback on, oh, I want cycling contests or swimming or skiing even. Raj from Solana wants skiing. So we've had a lot of recommendations. It's just more about, one, I think the goal of the platform is driving people towards healthy behavior that has an impact. So thinking about what can we add next that's most impactful and what, will actually get people inspired to move more and live healthier. So there needs to be like a fun aspect to it, obviously. And then two, just in terms of impact that it could potentially have and being thoughtful about what comes next is definitely top of mind. And then also data tracking things that you might not necessarily gamify, but you want to see.
Yep.
It doesn't make sense to gamify everything, believe it or not. Like we had someone mention, why don't you have calorie burning contests? Well, that could very easily encourage unhealthy behavior. So we want to be thinking super carefully about like the pros and cons that come with and like what we should track versus what we should gamify. But it's going to be much more broadly applied than what we see right now. The cool thing with the model of the financial incentives and kind of the social incentives of competing in a way against a group of people is that it can be applied in a lot of different ways. So there are a lot of plans there. Nothing concrete on what will be next, open to suggestions from users, of course.
Okay. Yeah, like let's get some roller skiing in there. San Diego's got a 𝐋𝐨𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐚 community of about 3 people, and it'd be funny to see that. Okay, let's take a quick break. We'll talk about today's sponsor, 𝐿 Associates. We're a DePIN consultant firm helping projects with strategy, messaging, and token incentives. We run a blog for founders over at 𝐿𝐿andHawks.com, produce this show, and most importantly, work with the core teams and communities of your favorite projects in the space to ensure tokenomics and incentives are fully aligned to build out some of the most badass physical infrastructure networks in the world. If your project needs help with any of these, check out 𝐿𝐿andHawks.com. Okay, so Caitlin, right now people are earning XP, right? Walk me through the kind of token side of this, but you're not earning like moonies or whatever the tokens might be called. You're just getting back whatever you put in plus whatever people lost. That's right for now?
So no one on the Moonwalk team has made public mention of any sort of token. So that's not something that, has been communicated at any point yet. Obviously nothing said about future, no promises whatsoever either way. As a comms person, I have to say that. But we do have an experience points program. Leaderboards are really effective in further gamifying an experience. So that was a no-brainer for Moonwalk. We have our Moonwalk Ascent leaderboard. If you go on the website, if you download the app, you can see your rank at any time. And basically the simple way that the XP is broken down, kind of the high level notes, is that we want to drive people towards actually taking action rather than finding ways to gamify or to game the platform, which sort of goes against what we're trying to get people to do, which is move. So referrals, as an example, only count towards XP calculation if the person that you refer actually joins a game. They put money on the line. They try to actually hit their daily step goals. They get involved. It's not just a botted sign up, which you could do a million times over and game it if it was calculated that way. The other way that is probably the biggest way to earn XP is just consistently joining step contests and hitting your goals. So we've made that really clear. That's one of the biggest ways as well. And also game creation. We just talked about public versus private games. Public game creation right now, if we opened up the floodgates on that, would be very difficult to quality control and it would be spammed very quickly. We maintain a very small group of users. Our ambassador program, our global ambassadors are able to create public games. They can do that for projects and so on. Private games, any user effectively can create a private game. So doing that and onboarding users to it. So not just making the game, not spamming and creating a ton that anyone joins. We want quality over quantity. If you create a custom step contest, bring users into it and get them involved, that's a lot of XP too. And then we're also going to do a bit of like a promotion where we start incentivizing projects or individuals that want to give sponsor prizes where they're adding money to the pot for users to split. It kind of enhances the experience for everyone. So it would make sense to, in some way, incentivize that for the people who are willing to do it. So that's kind of more of like another gamified aspect of it. And then the more simple incentives are the financial incentives within the game where you have the opportunity to split prizes. So we kept it pretty cut and dry there.
Interesting. Okay. So if some big company wants to come in and say, hey, we're going to put together an internal, whatever, Eli Lilly or Apple or whatever the company is, piece, and we'll put up an extra $5,000 in prize money that gets split out between everybody that fix it. Okay. I can see how that'd be pretty cool for private groups. And then how do you stop someone from manually entering steps? I can go to my Apple Health and be like, oh yeah, you didn't catch this 60,000 steps I did today. My bad.
Yeah, right. It's a casual 30 miles, as people so often do. So we do have, one of the biggest questions that we get is around anti-cheating algorithms and how we're tracking. In our beta testing period, that was something that, you know, we had people coming in thinking it was like step-in and trying to like just max out their step count. And we were looking through the behavior and how that data was actually accumulated throughout the day and different things that we could do to like filter through algorithmically to like get rid of bad actors. That algo has gotten pretty strong, obviously always iterating on it. And the more step trackers that we integrate with, there's going to be different considerations for like what can be done on the back end. Like you said, even adding manual steps that doesn't show in Apple right now. Like if you try adding manual steps, to my understanding, that doesn't work in the app. It might work on Apple Health, but it won't work for Moonwalk. And then a lot of it too, like our support team even does manual checks. So like right now we have a threshold. If you hit over a certain number of steps, whether once or several times, like you're going to trigger our systems to be able to look into it a bit deeper. Some of them are just obvious. Like we've had people have like 400,000 steps in a day. Physically impossible, I would say. So that person's just going to be removed from the platform. We're not messing around with that. If you are someone that's very clearly faking your steps, you're out. Because we don't want to ruin the experience for other people. And there needs to be like a trust component that this doesn't feel like a rigged game because everyone else is cheating but me. So we're working on like iterating on it more and more. And we're getting so much information from users about like the ways that they could game it, which we're using to inform that too. But that's definitely like the toughest nut to crack. And we get a lot of questions about that.
Yeah. There's always like 2% of people that will come up and screw things up for everyone else. And it's like, God, can't we just leave these things alone and have a good time with it? Okay. I think, probably finish up with just like, what are some of the craziest, challenges that you've seen? It sounded like the Solana folks are doing something pretty big internally.
Actually, one of our co-founders, 𝐾𝐞𝐏, who originally came up with the idea for the project, did a private game with, I think, maybe like 4 to 6 people joined total, but it was 100 SOL deposit per person, and it was 30,000 steps a day. I want to say the contest lasted somewhere between like 4 and 7 days, but a couple people missed steps. So do the math on that. That was like a massive take home for everyone else that was consistent with it. And like they all knew each other, right? So on the back to like the cheating, I'm just like in a group chat with these people and they were like going crazy trying to get their steps in by midnight. And it was one of the funniest things to watch. So those are pretty crazy. I mean, the private games get crazier than anything else, I would say, because we have like requirements on public games. If I'm creating them, we want to encourage healthy behaviors. So I'm not going to allow someone to put like a 50,000 step a day game on the public page, right? Because if you're new to the platform, you might not totally know what that means. Yeah. So like we want to have people have like a good experience. The other crazy thing that we've had just in a different way is we recently did a sponsor game with like $10,000 in bonk prizes to celebrate our iOS app launch. And it like broke the app, which is like the best thing that you could have. You want to like pressure test it and like see what breaks and how to fix it and make it better. But we had 2,025 people join a single game in honor of 2025. We capped it there. We have another game being sponsored by 𝐒𝐻𝐻 on Solana, and they put up like a $2,000 prize pool. They had 2,000 people in. Now they want to up the max to 3,000, and that would be our biggest game yet if that fills out. So that's pretty crazy to think about too. Like those are all real people. So since the early days, it's like I was having games that had 20 people in it, and our CTO is messaging me before I
Oh my
even work
God.
for them. That's
Yeah.
incredible. Like,
Yeah.
find this many people, these games are huge, and
Yep.
now it's thousands. So I'm excited to see that continue to scale. It's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
That's rad. And people can find this at moonwalk.fit or just the Moonboots app on iOS. And of course, today with Android.
So Moonboots was our mini app
It was mini, okay.
basically
Yep.
before we launched the full iOS app, just to be
Okay.
able to like see the moon that's visualizing your steps and
Yeah.
like being able to see where you're at in the day if you hit the goal. The full iOS app is out now, so you don't need Moonboots anymore. That's in the App Store.
Okay.
If you're an Android user, by the time this is out, our Android app should be live. So
Okay.
all the links will be on our website. It's moonwalk.fit, like you said. And then it should be pretty self-explanatory from there. But if it's not, we want the feedback. So feel free to reach out if there's, anything confusing.
Okay. I was a little bit too early on the Moon Boots thing. Max told me, I was like, dude, you got to do this thing. So we got into it. Rip and Caitlin, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for coming on and explaining what it is to us. And we'll have links down to everything in the description. Yeah. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you.